NASCAR Coast to Coast coming at you on this Thursday, September the 11th, and we've got a jam-packed show for you, including our special guest this week is Harrison Burton. You're probably wondering why Harrison? Well, of course, he's in the mix of the NASCAR Xfinity Series playoff run, but also he's going back to his late model roots, going to run with the Pro Late Models and the Cars Tour coming up this weekend, right after he tackles the Coliseum at Bristol. We'll talk to Harrison about his NASCAR season, but also what brought him back to late model racing. We'll have that conversation for you coming up. Plus, your calendar for short track racing. A lot of championships on the line this weekend between weekly series races, as well as some other short track and regional events. We'll let you know who is racing where and what titles are on the line. Plus, boy, oh boy, there are a lot of regional racers that are going to be tackling Bristol this week. And we'll let you know who's some of your favorites that will be making their NASCAR National Series debuts this weekend. That's all and a lot more coming up next here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, and it starts right now. Welcome to NASCAR Coast to Coast on this Thursday, September 11th. Yours truly, Chris Wilner, MRN Pit Reporter, and a great show for you lined up, including our special guest who we sat down with this week during NASCAR Xfinity Series Playoff Media Day. That's Harrison Burton, who not only has been making waves with the rise of AM racing in that series, going from a team that's had one top 10, maybe two, to now fighting for a championship. But also, we're going to talk late model racing as he made the announcement this week. He's going to run Rick Ware Racing's Pro Late Model. That conversation we talked about earlier this week. Here's a listen to Harrison Burton. I can't imagine what the last few days have been like going into Gateway, not sure what was going to happen, but now that you're officially in, what's the relief kind of settling in as you now get to prepare for the playoffs?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was really mixed emotions after Gateway. Obviously happy to be in the playoffs, happy that kind of we had a good enough year to where when we went to Gateway and kind of laid an egg, it was okay, right? I want to, as a driver and as a race team, I want our group to rise to occasions, right? And that's a cutoff race. Let's bring our best bullet. And I didn't feel like we did that, but our work throughout the year had kind of granted us that opportunity to have a mulligan, have a bad race, and really what was a pretty key race. And thankfully, we were able to make our way in the playoffs. And gosh, it's such a great opportunity for our team, our first time in the playoffs. That's all great, but now it's what do you do with it, right? What do you do with this opportunity? And I know all of our group doesn't want to be a one and done. We want to make it to the next round, and then once we get in to that round, you just take it one race at a time, try to get to Phoenix.
After a couple years in the Cup Series, if you just kind of take a 50,000-foot view, how has your return to the Xfinity Series kind of met your expectations? You either exceeded it, met it, maybe underwhelmed it. Where do you think it landed?
Yeah, I don't really even know. I don't know what to say was my expectations. It was a new kind of race team for me and a team that had been going through some hard times, and I was a driver that was going through hard times, right? So, gosh, we were at Daytona, and we were not locked into the show. Like we were worried to miss the show on qualifying time. We had a mechanical failure at Coda, and we were scared we were going to miss the show at Coda because we had issues. And gosh, that's a different level than what we're at now, right? So that's very rewarding. But also, as you get the team better, as our people that we've, especially my crew chief, Danny Eflin, I can't say enough good things about him, as he kind of sets the culture and I set the culture of what we want this race team to be. Then all of a sudden the goals change and you want to run better and better and better. And, we've run well at certain types of racetracks and others we've struggled, but I know that we're capable. And so when you have that feeling of, gosh, we have a chance to go do something special, it just starts to snowball and gets really fun.
When you look at the racing just aspect of this year at the Xfinity Series, has it changed or been different since you last were a part of it? Obviously, there's still those veterans like Justin and Austin, but a lot of young faces as well. So how's the racing changed?
It's changed a lot. I didn't expect it to have changed as much as it has. And maybe it's just my perspective has changed. Being when I was first in the Xfinity Series, a young guy at Joe Gibbs Racing, we had a ton of speed. We won races early in my career there and just had, it felt almost, I don't know. I just feel like the young guys that are in here now are more prepared. They're studying more. Every generation that comes up, you see guys like Zilich or whoever, right, that's coming up that's so prepared for the moments, right, and doesn't really need the experience. And I feel like when I first jumped in, you saw guys, I think Austin Cindric, I think the world of, he was my quasi teammate at Team Penske. You saw him go through a year of like struggling. And then all of a sudden his talent matched his work ethic and what he was doing. And then he was ready to go and win a championship. Now you see guys that are just ready to go from day one. So I was expecting to like, okay, I'm going to whoop up on some of these rookies early and then they're going to figure it out, but they've been pretty good from the jump.
How has AM Racing grown? I know you mentioned Danny and his contributions, but being a part of kind of almost rebuilding this team, how have you seen them grow over the year?
A huge amount, right? And even just the standard that's set from day one of, we're a playoff team now, or our goal is to perform at a high level, to go finish top 5, to go try and win a race. That goal, I don't want to speak for anyone that was there before me, but that wasn't the same mentality until this year. And I think that's huge credit to the ownership, the leadership of that race team. Give a huge shout out to Tim Self and Wade Moore, kind of the ownership and leadership members there that saw an opportunity to go try and make a jump in performance by hiring me, and then had all the faith in the world in me to let me go pick guys that I wanted to work with. So, I was in all the crew chief hires. I was the first guy that was hired. And so it was like me, and then let's go figure out the rest of the race team.
Right.
And so they had just a huge amount of confidence in me and gave me the freedom to say, hey, that Danny guy, I think he's going to be pretty good. And, they hired him and got him, and now we're in the playoffs. So pretty cool.
Been an incredible season up to this point, and I know it begins next week or this weekend at Bristol. When you look at the playoffs, and obviously you've got experience in the Xfinity Series, you were in the Cup Series playoffs. What did you learn about those moments to help navigate the format that is kind of our playoff format?
Yeah, you just have to rise to the occasion, right? And the good thing or bad thing, depending on who you are, is the season is reset. And we were however many points out of where we were going to need to be in 8th, and now we are 2, or 2 or 3. So understanding that, getting through that, and then just going and executing and understanding it's a 3-race season. So gosh, everything restarts. We're kind of born again and able to go and reset and go attack these next 3 races like our lives depend on it, because they really do. Our playoff lives depend on each and every restart, each and every pit road sequence, each and every race start, everything that you could think of, qualifying. It's intense. And so bringing that intensity, bringing that level of commitment to each lap is really important.
Where do those first three races settle up for you? Bristol, of course, Kansas, and then the Roval, which kind of anything can happen there. Where do you feel like you guys stack up at?
Yeah, Bristol and Kansas in the past have been good to me as a driver. I feel like one of my most dominant Xfinity races I didn't actually win was at Kansas, but had like a half track lead and had a caution come out. And gosh, that one still, I don't know if you can tell, still bothers me. But Bristol, another good one. I made my Xfinity debut here, so I've got as many laps as I possibly could at Bristol. And obviously those long Cup races, you learn a lot about the racetrack. So I feel really, really good going into both of those. The Roval is kind of our biggest question mark. We've done a really good job of finishing well at the road courses, getting good points. So I feel confident about that, but I feel like that's our weakest link of those 3 racetracks, a little bit on the driver and a little bit on the race car side of things. I think our road course program has taken steps forward, but we need a little bit more. So yeah, it's kind of up to us to go execute Bristol and Kansas really well so we can be in a comfortable spot going into the Roval.
And when you look at just entering the playoffs, I think anybody in the garage area would say AM Racing has exceeded expectations going to this season. Have you had any Cup teams maybe reach out, just taking notice of what you've been able to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit here and there. And gosh, it's so hard for me to get involved in that.
Yeah.
I as much as I possibly can, I leave it to my manager, Josh Jones, and let him just do all the kind of future looking. And my focus is entirely on the now, which is such a good thing. And it was this way when I went to AM too. Everyone was asking me, what are you going to do? And I was like, shoot, I don't even know what's available. I'm just racing. I'm trying to build my stock up as much as I can to get the best opportunity I can. And the one thing I will say that I appreciate about the race team that I'm at is from the very beginning, both of our goals has been to run well enough to get me back to the Cup Series. And so that's something that I think is on both of our minds, and they would feel like that would be a victory for them as well if that happened. But on the other hand, I would be happy to try and continue to build this race team and see where that goes in the future too. So I really don't know. I wish I could tell you what I was doing. I don't know yet.
Well, and as you focus on the now, what kind of things will play into that decision later on down the road? When you look at the success you're having and having fun being a part of this group, but then also knowing that your ultimate goal is to get back to Sunday.
Yeah, it's super hard, and it has to be the right opportunity, right? To go back on and race in the Cup Series. All the things have to be kind of clicking to make things work in that level. It has to be somewhere where I feel like I can go and succeed and make a name for myself in that series. I feel like I've done a good job of racing well in the Xfinity Series, winning races, making the playoffs. All three of my full time years, and at a different team now as well. So this season has been fun to kind of get back to running well and finishing races where I think we should, and maybe outperforming where we should at some weekends. And I don't know. We'll see where that goes.
It's tough to set expectations going into the playoffs. I think you ask any driver, it's to win the championship. But what would a successful 2025 playoff run for AM Racing look like for you?
I don't know. I think you have to leave it knowing that you brought everything you could to it. And I think my Cup playoff run last year was a bit disappointing, but it wasn't because of a lack of speed or a lack of effort. It was like random things happened, right? Like we had a power steering failure, we had a tire blow, and we got involved in a crash at Atlanta, running pretty well at the end of that race. And it's like those are three things that are out of my control. But I feel like the Wood Brothers group and myself showed up, with an intensity and a good amount of speed at some racetracks there that I felt confident about, and just didn't work out. And that was, I felt decent about that. I felt like we showed pretty well for ourselves, and the results may not show that, but the speed did, and I knew that personally that we showed out pretty well. So all you can do is control what you can control, and if I feel like leaving these playoffs that we've done that, whether that means a championship or that means, an exit in hopefully the round of 8. I don't want to say a first round exit even out loud. So, then we'll feel pretty good.
When you take the pressure away of what the last few weeks were like, was 2025 Harrison Burton having fun running in the Xfinity Series? You ask drivers all the time when they, come back to the Xfinity Series or Truck Series, there's kind of almost like a rebirth in love for the sport. What did you feel like, and how much fun were you having?
1,000%. Even with the pressure, it never really got that pressure filled for me. It was just fun, right? Like having a goal, having a group of guys that you spend time with kind of all aligned on that goal has been really fun. And doing it at a kind of that swagger you bring on your shoulder when you feel like you're out punching your weight class. When we beat a Gibbs car, when we beat a Junior Motorsports car, when we finish really high up in the order, and we know that took effort from our people. It didn't take a ton of resources and a ton of different people. We had, a core of guys that made a big difference. I think that's super rewarding and super fun.
Pro late model at South Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about that? What went into that decision? How much fun are you going to have going back and doing that?
Super fun. Yeah, I'm excited. First off, it's after the Xfinity Series race. So like I can just focus on the playoffs and enjoy that, and then go race after and kind of have fun with the late model deal. But Rick Ware, obviously I ran the all-star race for them in the Cup car. I think a lot of Rick and what he's doing especially on his late model program. They have really fast, nice stuff. And kind of came up in passing my PR guy, Matt Hendricks, who's staring at me through that window over there. He was a big part of helping kind of line that up. And yeah, all of a sudden now I'm going to race twice in 2 days at Bristol and South Boston. So I'm super excited, especially being kind of my home track and where my family grew up is pretty cool.
What drew you to go back and do that? Because I'm sure you've been paying attention. The Cars Tour, whether it's late model stocks or pro late models, it's been some of the toughest racing I think we've seen basically outside of racing on Sundays. So, what kind of drew you to go back and do that?
I just love it. I love late model racing. I grew up super late model, pro late model racing. It's kind of where I cut my teeth, and man, I love those race cars. So I just honestly was naturally drawn to do it. I wanted to do more of that stuff. I've just been really preoccupied with the NASCAR stuff and haven't really had the right opportunity to where this deal is like literally, hey, we want you to drive a race car. Let's go do it. It's like, okay, sure. Yeah. Let's go. So that's been a really cool opportunity that doesn't really come around very often. So once again, and the same thing for the All-Star race. So once again, thank you to Rick Ware Racing for helping put that together. And really cool opportunity for me to go race at home.
Great conversation with Harrison. Appreciate his time and best of luck. I know for him and his entire team going into the Xfinity Series playoffs. Going to be fun to watch him go from Bristol on Friday over there to South Boston on Saturday with the Cars Tours. They begin to wrap up their season, so we'll see what happens coming up this weekend. Still lots more to come here on Coast to Coast. We mentioned the calendar, also some news and notes making waves in the world of regional racing as we hit the midway point of the month of September here shortly. That's all next here on NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.
3, 2, 1, start your engine!
The NASCAR channel is streaming now, exclusively on Tubi.
Tell them we got it!
Go deeper into NASCAR with 24/7 news, documentaries, and explore the vault of timeless NASCAR stories and unforgettable races. From crushing defeats to the thrill of victory.
Go, baby!
The NASCAR channel, always on, always free. Only on Tubi.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast here on the Motor Racing Network. Taking a look back at last week before we kind of look at the calendar and who is racing where on many tracks championship nights. We want to talk about the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. We would love to tell you what happened with the Eddie Partridge 256 at Riverhead. The problem is Mother Nature this past weekend had other ideas. So the Tour and NASCAR worked together with the racetrack at Riverhead, and they went ahead and scratched the weekend this past weekend. So the Eddie Partridge 256 going to be postponed now to October 4th. That's coming up here in about 3 weeks or so. So October 4th will be the resumption of the Eddie Partridge 256. Not much on-track activity happened there over the weekend just because of the forecasted rain over the racetrack during the weekend. So we'll have more coverage of that in a couple of weeks. But again, their tour season starting to wrap up as well. So we'll keep you abreast on what's going on with the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. But again, October 4th will be the postponed Eddie Partridge 256 at Riverhead. Some other winners over the weekend. We mentioned last week the track championship title at South Boston Speedway for the late model division went down to the wire. Dead tied going into last weekend between Peyton Sellers and Trevor Ward. Well, it was Peyton Sellers who made history. Now his 8th track championship, surpassing David Blankenship for the most all time, as Peyton Sellers led all 100 laps from the pole to get his 8th track championship. And boy, what a scene it was at South Boston Speedway up there in Virginia over the weekend. A huge congratulations to Peyton. I know this is a huge stepping stone for him. Not only is just another track championship and solidifying his place in South Boston history, but when you look at what's coming up around the corner, it's the Valley Star Credit Union 300 at Martinsville, the iconic late model stock race here in a couple of weeks that really is the crown jewel and the richest late model race in the country each and every season. So for Peyton, he's going to have all kinds of momentum going into that race as he looks to capture another grandfather clock. But congratulations to Peyton, and a great run for Trevor Ward. Definitely give him a tip of the cap as well, going toe-to-toe with now Mr. 8-time at South Boston Speedway. So congratulations. And again, that was a $20,000 track championship prize going to Peyton Sellers and that team. Jake Garcia, of course, another driver in the NASCAR National Spotlight who's going for a championship in the Craftsman Truck Series this year with ThorSport. He also went late model racing over the weekend as the trucks had the weekend off. They were not at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. Instead, he went out and won the 13th annual Georgia Southern Nationals at Cordele with the ASA Southern Super Series. Of course, the series that he's really made his name in coming up through the late model ranks in the early part of his career. And he did so beating the likes of Johnny Sauter, a former Truck Series champion, and Colin Allman as well, in a really good battle up there at Cordele in Georgia. So congratulations to Jake as he solidifies himself another late model win and get some momentum as they go to the Coliseum this weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway. And a little bit of drama in the Smart Modified Tour as they hit the back portion of their season with just about 4 races to go. Luke Baldwin was crowned the winner at Caraway Speedway over the weekend, but he did not cross the start-finish line first. That was Carson Lofton. But of course, like we've seen several times over the course of some late model races, as well as in the Smart Modified Tour, the tech shed is where the race was won for Luke and lost for Carson Lofton. Carson Lofton was found to have a check valve installed on the spec motor that they run in the Smart Modified Tour, and that's a big no-no according to the rule book. So Carson Lofton's win was disqualified. Luke Baldwin grabs his third win of the season as he vaults into the championship points lead with one more race to go before they go into their playoffs format. We'll talk more about that next week, but congratulations to Luke. Tough break for Carson Lofton, though. They're at Caraway Speedway in the Smart Modified Tour. Some news and notes that you may have missed or may be looking forward to. I mentioned at the top of the show, Bristol is going to be the site of a lot of regional racers going NASCAR racing in the National Series for potentially the first time. Well, that includes Trayton Lapsevich. We talked about him and his rising stock as a young racer. He's going to make his Truck Series debut on Thursday night for Young's Motorsports at Bristol. That, of course, race coming up tonight, a little doubleheader with the ARCA Menard Series and ARCA East Championship. Cole Butcher, we mentioned last week, solidifying his deal to make his Truck Series debut for Homar Friesen in the second truck, the 62 Toyota. He'll be in action tonight as well. And then, of course, the big news that happened last week going into Gateway was Brendan Butterbean Queen, your ARCA Menard Series points leader by 42. Well, he's going to continue his rise in NASCAR as he'll make his Xfinity Series debut this weekend on the high banks of Bristol for Colleague Racing. What a story for Brendan Queen. I think he put out a tweet and said, if you would have told me I'd be running the Xfinity Series Bristol night race for Colleague Racing about 2 years ago, I would have called you crazy. Well, here you are. You're not crazy. You're going to do it for the first time. And so we'll be interested to watch all of our regional racers, of course, tackle Bristol. And, of course, I mentioned Jake Garcia, fresh off a late model win, going to take part in the Truck Series playoff race there on Thursday night. So speaking of this weekend, I mentioned ARCA is going to kick things off at Bristol on Thursday tonight. Well, that is the championship for the ARCA Menard Series East platform, and it comes down to two drivers. Isaac Kitzmiller with a 19-point lead over Tyler Reif, but it is littered full of ARCA Series regulars as well because this is a combo event. So Brendan Butterbean Queen's in action as well, LeVar Scott, a lot of other drivers as well. Tristan McKee, who won, of course, on the road course at Watkins Glen at the fresh age of 15. He's going to make his second appearance, his first on an oval, as he'll be the second car for Brendan Queen over there at Pinnacle Racing Group. Cletus McFarland, for those YouTube fans of Cletus, he's back in action too as well. Plus drivers like Laney Bice for Rev Racing, Patrick Starapoli as well. The doctor's back in the house for Venturini Motorsports, and Jake Finch also getting a start for Venturini as well as their season again begins to wind down. On the ARCA side of things, 4 races to go. But again, the championship finale for the ARCA East. So we'll see how it goes down tonight in Bristol. Now, the Napa Auto Parts 150 presented by West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame at All American Speedways, the site for the ARCA West Championship, as they too go down to about 4 races to go in their season. The title fight again is between Trevor Huddleston and the defending race winner of the All-American Racetrack. And of course, he's got that 8-point lead over Kyle Keller going into this weekend. Not a huge car count again. We've kind of seen that struggle a little bit on the ARCA West side of things, but Tanner Reif is there. Eric Johnson is going to be there. Todd Souza back in action as well on the West calendar. So we'll see how that shakes out at All-America Speedway. A late start again for those of us here on the East Coast. If you want to tune into Flow Racing, 10:45 p.m. Eastern Time coming up this Saturday on Flow. You can check out the ARCA West Championship. And the ZMAX Cars Tour. I mentioned Harrison Burton going to tackle the Pro Late Models. It is a doubleheader for the ZMAX Cars Tour as they hit the final home stretch run of their 2025 season with championships up for grabs in both the late model stock and the Pro Late Model. 3 races to go on the late model stock side of things. Landon Lewis, fresh off a win, has that 1-point lead. That's it. 1 point over Connor Hall for Junior Motorsports, who's looking to win a championship this year as well. This is the last event for the late model stocks, though, as you heard me mention earlier, before the Valley Star Credit Union 300 at Martinsville. I know a lot of Cars Tour competitors as well as local racers like Peyton Sellers, who just won a track title, will be up at Martinsville in a couple of weeks. So this race is huge as far as momentum going into that race because you need a lot of it when you battle some 200 late model stock drivers trying to go for those coveted 24 starting spots. So we'll see what happens this weekend with the Cars Tour. Of course, there are a couple drivers that are doing double duty. Laney Bice is going to go from Bristol to go down and run at South Boston on Saturday night as well. So it's going to be fun to watch. 28 late model stocks entered. I mentioned Laney, but you got Chad McCumbee back from McCumbee McAleer, Ryan Millington, Minnie Tyrell, who's won this season, and a lot more. So 28 cars in the late model stock. And then the Pro Late Model, Harrison Burton joins the championship points leaders in that battle with Ben Mayer, who's got that 30-point lead over Lopez. And then Keelan Harvick the winning machine this year of young Keelan Harvick, 42 points back. He is mathematically still in it. So if Keelan could get a win this weekend at South Boston, I'd be curious to see what that points gap is going into the final couple of races of the season. And of course, Harrison Burton, we're really excited to see what he can do in the Rick Ware Racing Pro Late Model this weekend. His first start in a late model, by the way, in a couple of years. So we'll be interesting to see how he gets adjusted to things at South Boston Speedway. Some other events over the weekend, if you want to mark your calendars of kind of where people are racing and when, on Saturday, Smart Modified Tour, the Flying Virginia Classic at Dominion, as they hit the back burner of their season. Luke Baldwin, I mentioned, leads that championship by 27 points. Ryan Newman's sitting at second and in contention for the win for the championship. He was, of course, part of the playoff format last year. Looks like he'll be locked into the playoffs again this year. This is the last race before they start that playoff format that we'll get into next week. So Dominion, the last regular season race as they hit the playoffs starting next week. Friday, a little local racing going on for the Pro All-Star Super Late Models at Star Speedway. And then Saturday, your calendar is full. If you don't have enough racing on Saturday, I don't know what else to tell you. You got Race of Champions Modifieds, 250 at Lake Erie. Riverhead has racing going on as well as championship nights. We got championships to settle at Berlin Raceway, Jennerstown. We've got the Virginia Sprint Cars at Langley, and also championship night just up the road from here at Hickory Motor Speedway as well. And then followed by the American Canadian Tour Fall Foliage at White Mountain Speedway. All of that going on this weekend. Be sure to visit your local short track if you can, show them some love, and let us know maybe on social media where you are hanging out at over the weekend. Motor Racing Network is off, so hopefully the plan for us is we'll get to tune into some short track racing as well. We wish our friends down at Bristol and the PRN Network ready to go on a good weekend, but we are off this week, and we actually have 2 weeks off, so we'll be back coming up in Kansas here a couple weeks. So it'll be a nice reset as we hit our stretch to the end of the season. For Harrison Burton, our special guest this week, want to thank him for joining us. Of course, our producer, Pat Jaggers. My name is Chris Wilner. That has been another episode of NASCAR Coast to Coast here on the Motor Racing Network. We'll look forward to breaking all the short track action down for you once again next week. Have a great weekend of racing. We'll see you soon.